The bay doors of the Starstrider slammed shut with a hydraulic hiss, sealing in the last of the unmarked cargo. Terran Vox wiped his brow with the sleeve of his oil-streaked jacket, his eyes flicking toward the dull hum of the dock's overhead lights. The crates were heavier than usual, bad sign number 1. The pay was quadruple the standard, bad sign number 2. And the woman who'd hired him hadn't given a last name, bad sign number 3. But Terran wasn't in a position to be choosy. "You're sealed up," called Leary from the control balcony, her short-cropped silver hair catching the dock light. She was one of the few who didn't mind dealing with someone whose smuggling license had lapsed 2 lunar cycles ago. "You should go now. Before someone starts asking what's in those boxes." Terran grunted, slapping the last crate with a tired palm. "This job's supposed to be routine, Leary. Just a hop to Telvax 4 and back. You sure this isn't going to land me in another interstellar tribunal?" Leary hesitated. "Routine enough, but I didn't pack the cargo myself." Terran gave her a long, hard stare. "You really know how to make a guy feel at ease." She tossed him a data chip. "Coordinates are already in. No inspections on arrival. Don't ask questions. Just fly." Terran caught the chip and turned it over in his gloved fingers. "Yeah, because that always works out great." He climbed the ramp into the Starstrider's narrow corridor, passing old alloy walls and flickering lights. The ship was aging, patched together from parts of at least 3 other models, but she was fast and nearly invisible on standard scans. She had to be. Terran had a habit of making enemies in high places. As he slid into the cockpit, the seat molded to his frame like a second skin. The overhead console lit up, casting a warm amber glow over his face. His fingers danced across controls out of muscle memory, flipping through diagnostics and trajectory paths. "This is Starstrider, requesting departure clearance," he said into the comm, voice low and calm. "Cleared for Vector Path 9. "Safe travels, Starstrider," replied Dock Control. Too easy, he thought, suspicion threading through his thoughts like smoke. Leary's warning rang louder now. Still, once the magnetic field opened, he guided the ship through and hit the drive. The stars stretched to lines as the Starstrider shot into slipstream. Only when the hum of travel settled into a dull rhythm did Terran lean back. His eyes drifted toward the cargo hold displayed on the ship's monitor. There was something about that last crate. Something that didn't sit right. And Terran Vox had never been good at leaving well enough alone. Terran moved through the narrow corridors of the Starstrider, boots clanking softly against the grated floor. The cargo bay was dim, lit only by flickering utility lights and the occasional pulse of the ship's internal systems. He stood before the row of crates, each identical on the outside, each bearing no identifying marks. He pulled out his portable scanner. "Just a peek," he muttered, kneeling beside the last crate. Leary's voice echoed in his mind. "Don't ask questions. Just fly." But this crate hummed, not with power, but something else. Something alive. The scanner flashed red. "Unregistered biological signatures detected," it read. "Unknown composition. Origin non-catalogued." Terran frowned. "That's not good." He tapped the crate's seal panel. "Let's see what you're hiding," he whispered. The locking mechanism hissed open with a reluctant groan. Cold air wafted out, thick with antiseptic and something faintly floral. Inside, nestled in a cocoon of synthweave cushioning, was a creature. Small, feline-shaped. Covered in fur that shimmered with an iridescent blend of deep sapphire and silver. Its eyes were closed, its body breathing shallowly. A collar wrapped delicately around its neck, too ornate for any ordinary pet, metal that looked like liquid crystal, etched with glyphs he didn't recognize. Terran stared, stunned. "You've got to be kidding me." The creature stirred, letting out a sound that was halfway between a mew and a mechanical trill. Its ears twitched. Then, slowly, its eyes opened, 2 brilliant gold orbs, focused and alert. Terran froze. "You're awake?" The creature blinked, head tilting with eerie sentience. Then it spoke, not aloud, but directly into his mind. "Help, please." Terran recoiled, almost dropping the scanner. His pulse spiked. What the hell? The creature slowly rose from its curled position. Its movements were fluid, deliberate. It stepped out of the crate, its gaze locked on Terran like it recognized him. Okay, nope. I don't do telepathy, Terran said, backing away. That's way outside the standard freight package. Another voice rang through the ship, his comlink crackling to life. Attention! All ships departing Iskar Station within the past 3 hours must halt immediately. A royal genetic asset has been reported missing. All vessels subject to search and seizure under Interstellar Code 17B. Terran's heart sank. You've got to be kidding me, he whispered again. The creature sat down beside him, trembling. He reached instinctively for the emergency medkit. Whatever this thing was, it was scared, intelligent, and in danger. Guess it's one of those jobs, he muttered, pulling the crate shut and locking it behind him. All right, little mystery. You stay quiet. I'll figure this out. He just hoped he hadn't gotten himself killed in the process. Terran paced the corridor just outside the cargo hold, his fingers twitching at his sides. The creature's voice still echoed in his mind, not in words but impressions, raw emotion, flashes of pain, confusion, and most disturbing of all, trust. Trust directed at him. He'd been trusted before. And it hadn't ended well. He returned to the hold, crouching low to where the small being now sat in the corner. It watched him with those glowing golden eyes, alert and unblinking. You speak through thoughts, he said cautiously. Can you understand me? The creature's head tilted, then a gentle pulse of warmth spread across his consciousness. Yes. Good, he muttered, rubbing his temple. That'll make this next part easier. Who are you, and what exactly did I just smuggle out of Iskar Station? The creature hesitated. Terran felt the silence more than heard it, felt the turmoil building. Then, slowly, an answer came. Name is Rissa. The words brushed against his thoughts like wine through silk. Airbonded. Taken from the cradle chambers. Hidden to survive. Terran's brows drew together. Airbonded? Like royalty? The creature, Rissa, dipped her head once. Chosen companion of royal blood. Bound for life. Terran stood, pacing again. Fantastic. So I'm harboring a fugitive alien princess's emotional support panther. Rissa made a low sound, like a huff. It might have been amusement. His calm link chirked again. He slapped it off the wall. Not now. He looked back at her. Why me? You hit on my ship. You knew what you were doing. Rissa's voice returned, slower this time, deliberate. Saw you? In the dreamnet. Saw your light. Terran froze. Dreamnet? My kind see beyond the waking. We choose not from logic, but from resonance. Yours was the only spark bright enough. Terran stared, mouth slightly open. You picked me out of the galaxy because of a dream? Rissa gave no verbal response, but her tail curled slowly around her paws. She looked tired again, swaying slightly. Hey, stay awake, Terran said, moving toward her. What's happening? Poisoned, she whispered, mental voice weaker. Hunted. They do not want me to bond again. Terran moved quickly, scooping her up into his arms. She weighed little, less than a house cat, but heat rolled off her in waves. You couldn't have said that 10 minutes ago? He muttered, jogging toward the Starstrider's modest medical bay. Don't die on me, Rissa. I have no idea how to explain a dead alien princess cat to station control. Alarms were already lighting up the console. A ship had entered their vector. Sleek. Dark. Military grade. They'd been found. Perfect timing, Terran muttered. Because this day wasn't bad enough already. Terran kicked open the medbay doors, nearly stumbling as the ship jolted under him. The warning sirens continued to pulse through the Starstrider, red lights spinning wildly across the ceiling. Rissa trembled in his arms, her fur damp with fever sweat, breaths coming in shallow bursts. Computer, initiate emergency medical scan, Taryn barked, slamming her down onto the padded table. The medical system flickered to life with a soft chime, its scanner extending from the wall like a mechanical limb. A pale beam swept across Rissa's tiny body. Unknown life form. Biological signs critical. Toxin detected. Source: neurological disruptor. Blood saturation: 67%. Prognosis: terminal within 1 hour. Taryn's throat tightened. There has to be something, some treatment. Administering standard antitoxin ineffective. Recommend tailored synthesis. Materials unavailable. Damn it! He slammed a fist against the console. There has to be a way. His fingers moved with practiced urgency, opening a hidden panel in the medbay wall. From within, he pulled a secure case. Inside, sealed in vials of metallic frost glass, were samples he hadn't touched in years. Black market experimental meds, most half-tested and worse than the diseases they were meant to cure. He found one marked -9 billion Malawin quachas antineuro, the only compound remotely close to what Rissa needed. This stuff wasn't meant for aliens. He muttered, already loading it into the micro-injector. But neither was any of this. As he pressed the needle into Rissa's flank, her mind flared, panic, fear, and then acceptance. She was still connected to him, even now. Trust you? He grit his teeth. Then don't die. The medbay rattled violently as the pursuing ship locked on with a tractor beam. Taryn barely kept his footing. His headset buzzed to life. Unidentified vessel, this is Captain Enrix of the Cesari Dominion. You are harboring a high-value fugitive. Power down and prepare for immediate boarding. Taryn keyed open the comm. Captain Enrix, I'd love to cooperate, but I'm in the middle of treating someone who's going to die if you rip my hull apart. Resistance will be interpreted as hostile action. Taryn growled, slamming the comm shut. Of course it will. He ran to the bridge, re-engaging thrusters. The slipstream generator was still cooling. He couldn't jump yet, but he could buy time. He threw the ship into a hard dive, letting gravity drag them into the shadow of a nearby asteroid cluster. The Starstrider shuddered, panels sparking, as the tractor beam tried to maintain its grip. Alarm screamed. Rissa whimpered in the medbay. He didn't hesitate. Evasive pattern echo 4. He ordered. Boost plasma coils. Burn every drop we've got. The ship surged forward, the beam faltering just long enough for the Starstrider to slip free and vanish into the asteroid field. Taryn clutched the control panel, knuckles white. If I live through this, I'm raising my damn rates. Behind him, Rissa's faint, weak voice returned to his mind. Still here. The Starstrider weaved through the asteroid field like a hunted animal, darting between jagged rocks as the inertial dampeners strained against the crushing G-forces. Taryn held steady at the helm, sweat beading on his brow despite the cold inside the cockpit. His eyes flicked to the rear sensors, no sign of pursuit. The Dominion ship had backed off, unwilling to risk a high-speed chase through unstable debris. Still, he didn't let himself breathe easy. Not yet. He cut the engines, letting the ship drift deeper into the asteroid shadows, and slipped out of the pilot's seat, footfalls echoing through the eerily silent halls. The moment he stepped into the medbay, the tension in his gut returned full force. Rissa was curled on her side, still trembling. Her chest rose and fell in erratic rhythm, but her color was no longer as pale. The shimmering pattern of her fur had begun to return, and her eyes fluttered half open. You're not allowed to die, he said gruffly, kneeling beside her. I'm already in deep enough without making this a murder charge. A quiet pulse of amusement brushed his mind. Still, not funny. I wasn't trying to be. He reached out slowly and ran his hand along her back. The fur was soft now, no longer burning with fever. The micro-injections had worked, but it was temporary. She needed real treatment, something far beyond what he could offer with stolen supplies in a smuggler's medbay. You're going to need to tell me who's trying to kill you, Taryn said. And why? Rissa's eyes met his. Her mental voice was quieter now, like a whisper across a still lake. Because of what I am. Because of what I carry. What do you mean, what you carry? Bond. To the bloodline. To the flame. Terran sat back, frowning. The flame? Rissa's tail curled tightly against her body. The living soul of our monarchy. Passed from one heir to the next. I am its keeper until the rightful host is chosen. Terran stared at her. You're saying that you're, what, some kind of royal relic courier? She gave him a soft trill. Not amusement, exactly, more like patience. I am more than courier. I am protector. Oracle. Chosen companion of the next monarch. Without me, the flame dies. Without the flame, the line ends. Terran swore softly. And you chose me. I saw your light. And the old law says, should I be betrayed or harmed, the one who saves me is to be taken to the seat of the crown. He stared at her. Let me guess. That seat isn't exactly a safe spot right now. No. My kind are hunted. The royal line is fractured. The throne is empty. Silence settled in the medbay. Terran leaned back against the wall, rubbing the bridge of his nose. So what you're telling me, he muttered, is I've been hijacked by a half-dead alien soul guardian who's dragged me into a civil war over a throne I've never heard of. Rissa chirped faintly. Yes. Terran let out a long, exasperated breath. Figures. Outside, the ship drifted quietly between the rocks. But in the stillness, far beyond sensor range, something else moved. Something cloaked. Watching. And closing in. Terran stood at the viewport, arms crossed, watching the asteroid field rotate slowly around the Starstrider. Massive chunks of rock drifted lazily, some glowing faintly with traces of ancient minerals. It was quiet, too quiet for his liking. Rissa had stabilized, but she was far from recovered. Her presence in his mind had faded to a dim flicker, a candle behind heavy glass. Every few minutes he checked on her, each time, her breathing was steady, but the strain was visible. He tapped the console, activating long-range sensors. The scan swept the immediate vicinity, then extended further. Static. A few non-hostile signatures. Then, his gut twisted. Computer, replay the last blip on Vector 17. Replaying. Contact unknown vessel. Heat trace consistent with cloaked Dominion-class pursuit craft. He slammed his fist into the console. Of course they didn't give up. He sprinted to the medbay. Rissa. Her eyes opened slowly, pupils dilated, first shimmering faintly once again. She was more alert now, but still weak. They followed. He nodded grimly. Yeah. And I can't outrun a Dominion stealth cruiser. Not unless I know where I'm going. Then you must go to Alaris. Terran frowned. That's a restricted sector. Not for you. Her voice had shifted, firmer, heavier. Almost regal. He stepped back, unnerved. What's happening to you? The bond is forming. My choice is anchoring. You are being accepted. I didn't agree to anything. He snapped. Rissa looked up at him with a calm that seemed beyond her years. Or maybe beyond any years. You did. When you saved me. He didn't have time to argue. He ran back to the cockpit, plotted the course she gave him, and brought the engines online. As the ship shuddered into motion, the asteroid field lit up, a ripple of explosions arcing across the horizon. The Dominion ship had fired a spread to flush him out. No more hiding, Terran muttered. You want me? Come and get me. The Starstrider burst from cover, weaving between collapsing rock formations. Chunks of stone spun in its wake as he dove straight into the gravitation well of the largest asteroid. The Dominion ship broke cloak behind him, sleek and deadly, its engines glowing blue as it accelerated to intercept. Terran's hands moved faster than his thoughts, guiding his ship into tighter spirals. Lasers sliced past, one scorching the port thruster. Alarms blared. Alaris better be worth it, he muttered. Rissa's voice returned. It is more than worth it. It is where your fate begins. He banked hard, entering the Alaris approach corridor, ancient, shielded space once sealed off by an extinct civilization. His NAV system blared errors and warnings, but he ignored them. Behind him, the Dominion ship hesitated at the edge. The moment Terran's vessel breached the field, the Dominion ship vanished from sensors. "Did we lose them?" he whispered. "For now," Rissa murmured. "But the real danger waits ahead." Alaris was not a planet. It wasn't even a moon or a station. It was a relic, an impossibility of architecture suspended in deep space, orbiting nothing, built by hands long dead and minds long forgotten. Terran's breath caught as the Starstrider drifted into the shadow of its immense frame. Black spires twisted like stone vines, glistening with alien metals. Conduits of light ran through the structure like veins, pulsing in a rhythm that matched neither heartbeat nor engine cycle. It was alive in its own way, ancient and waiting. "Computer, run scan." Negative. Scanners unable to penetrate Alaris' structure. Composition unknown. Figures, Terran muttered. Behind him, Rissa stirred. "Approach the central ring," she instructed, her mental voice steadier now. "The temple recognizes my kind." Terran hesitated, but guided the ship closer. As they neared the central ring, a perfect circle suspended within the fractured spires, Rissa let out a soft trill and rose to her feet unsteadily. Terran turned. "You shouldn't be up." She took a step forward, first shimmering brighter than before. Her body seemed different. Taller, slightly more humanoid in posture. The change was subtle but undeniable. Her tail curled behind her like a brushstroke of light. "I'm healing," she said, this time aloud, softly, with a voice that lilted like music echoing through water. Terran stared. "You can speak?" She blinked at him, her golden eyes gentle. "I always could. But it drains strength in this form. You gave me time." Before he could respond, the ship shuddered. A beam of amber light shot from the ring, engulfing the Starstrider. Alarms screamed, then died instantly. "Auto systems disengaged," the computer reported. "External force overriding navigation." The ship began to move on its own, drawn slowly into the center of the ring. Terran gripped the console. "We're being pulled in." Rissa stepped beside him. "It's welcoming us." Funny way of showing it. Moments later, the Starstrider passed through the ring and everything outside the viewport vanished. Not dark, just gone. Replaced by an endless sea of golden mist and suspended islands of stone. "Where are we?" he breathed. Rissa looked out with reverence. "The inner sanctum of Alaris. A realm between space and soul. Here, the flame can awaken fully." Terran exhaled slowly. "You're really not just a fancy pet, are you?" She turned toward him, eyes glowing softly. "No. I am guardian to the legacy of 1,000 rulers. And now you are part of it." Something pulsed beneath the ship, like a heartbeat echoing through the hull. Terran stepped back from the console, suddenly aware that they were not alone. And somewhere in the mist, something massive shifted. A trial was coming. And it had already begun. The Starstrider came to rest on a floating stone platform, suspended in the glowing mist like an island in a sea of dreams. Terran stood at the threshold of the open hatch, squinting into the endless haze. There were no visible walls, no ceiling, no horizon, only fractured pieces of what once might have been a great city, floating like memories of a forgotten age. Rissa stepped down beside him, moving with new grace. She now walked upright, still covered in shimmering fur, still feline in form, but taller, more refined. Her eyes glowed steadily now, and her voice no longer echoed with effort when she spoke. "This place is sacred," she said. "But it will test you. You must not turn away, no matter what it shows you." Terran glanced at her. "You could give me a few more details before throwing me into some holy fever dream." She met his eyes with quiet intensity. "The bond is not complete. Alaris knows this. It will challenge your heart, your past, your will to stand beside me and protect the flame." He scoffed. "What if I fail? Then the flame chooses another. And we die." Terran blinked. "Well?" Great. She placed her paw, on his forearm. It was warm. Real. You're stronger than you believe. The ground beneath them rippled, stones shifting with a deep, musical hum. A path of light formed across the platform, leading into the mist. Terran took a breath and stepped forward. Rissa remained behind. You're not coming? He asked, alarmed. This trial is yours alone. He gave her one last look. You better be here when I get back. Always. As he stepped into the mist, the world shifted. In the blink of an eye, he stood on familiar ground. A battlefield. Tarsus 9. Smoke curled through the air. Bodies lay scattered, human, alien, indistinguishable in death. The air stank of burning ozone and blood. And standing before him was a face he hadn't seen in years. Elle. She wore her medic's uniform, untouched by ash or fire. Her auburn hair pulled back in that stubborn bun he always teased her about. She looked exactly like she had the last time he saw her, before she died in his arms. Terran, she whispered. His breath caught. No. This isn't real, he said aloud, jaw tight. You're not real. But his feet didn't move. His hands trembled. Guilt flared behind his eyes like a brand. You left me, Elle said, stepping closer. You ran. You saved yourself? Terran shook his head. I tried to save you. I did everything. You failed. He flinched as her image wavered, smoke drifting from her body like she was burning from the inside. Her voice echoed now, blending with others, the cries of the wounded, the dying, the ones he couldn't save. He dropped to one knee, clutching his head. I'm not that man anymore, he gasped. The world around him rumbled. Then a hand touched his shoulder. You were never weak, said Rissa's voice, clear, steady, within his mind. You just needed something worth staying for. The battlefield faded, ash replaced by light. Terran stood once more on the floating platform. He was alone, but the bond pulsed stronger than before. And deep within the sanctum, something stirred in approval. Terran emerged from the golden haze, chest heaving. The platform beneath his boots reformed itself with each step, adapting to his direction, guiding him towards something unseen. Though the battlefield illusion had vanished, the weight of it still pressed on his shoulders, Elle's voice echoing, not in condemnation anymore, but in acceptance. He didn't realize how much he needed that. Rissa was waiting for him where the platform narrowed into a bridge of light. Her posture was straighter now, her form more humanoid than ever. The transformation was undeniable. Her legs were fully upright, shaped like a woman's, her arms strong but elegant. Soft violet fur covered her body, but her face had become strikingly human in its symmetry, her lips fuller, her eyes wide with understanding. Only the ears and tail remained unmistakably feline. He stopped short, eyes widening. Rissa. She tilted her head, ears twitching slightly. The bond strengthens, she said gently. So too does my form. You look different, he said. Almost. Like you? She offered. He nodded slowly. Yeah. This is the gift of the flame, she said. It reshapes us. You and I, we are becoming something more. He tried to look away, but his eyes kept returning to her, drawn not just by her appearance, but by the strange new warmth that pulsed through the connection between them. How many trials are left? He asked, voice low. Rissa turned toward a towering structure just beyond the bridge, a colosseum-like ruin suspended in the mist. 2. 1 to test our unity. 1 to challenge your right to defend the flame. Terran exhaled. Let me guess. The next one's not going to be easier. She stepped toward him, her hand brushing his. Her fingers had become more human too, long, soft, warm. Not easier, she said. But not alone. Together, they crossed the light bridge toward the structure. It loomed larger with every step, a fortress of stone and silence. Inside, the mist cleared to reveal a wide arena carved from black crystal, surrounded by floating glyphs that shimmered with ancient fire. The moment they stepped in, the air grew heavy. The glyphs pulsed. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed across the arena. Not in words, but in emotion. Prove your bond. Terran barely had time to react before the floor split apart beneath them. He and Rissa dropped together into a chamber below, landing in a circle of light surrounded by mirrored walls. From the walls, figures emerged. Copies of themselves. Terran took a step back. What the hell? The copies moved in sync, perfect, flawless. Then the voice returned. Destroy each other. Or perish together. Terran raised his fists instinctively. His doppelganger mirrored the motion, eyes cold. Rissa stepped forward, her copy doing the same, claws extending. Terran looked to her. There's gotta be a trick to this. She nodded. It's not about strength. It's about trust. The copies lunged. And the trial began. Terran barely ducked in time. His double's fist grazed his cheek, the sheer force behind the blows sending him stumbling backward across the crystal floor. His doppelganger's face was impassive, like a mirror made of fury, muscles tense and stance perfect. Every movement it made mirrored a version of him at his peak. No hesitation, no emotion, just raw intent. Across the chamber, Rissa's twin moved like a shadow. Faster. Harsher. Its claws hissed through the air with every swipe, and Rissa parried with graceful, deliberate movements, but even she was tiring. The bond between them pulsed, but strained, like a string pulled taut between two boulders. Terran rolled to his feet, circling his opponent. So, this is the test? Beat ourselves into submission? The voice returned, not spoken aloud, but reverberating within them both. Conquer the fear that festers in your reflection. Or be consumed by it. Terran ducked another blow. He swung back, his fist meeting his twin's palm with a crack that jolted through his shoulder. I've already faced my past, he growled. The copy spoke for the first time, its voice his own but twisted. You ran when she needed you. Just like you'll run from this. Terran faltered. The copy pressed in. Rissa's changing. Becoming something, alien. How long until you stop seeing her as anything but a mission? I don't see her as a mission, he snapped. Then what is she to you? The blow came from nowhere. The twin struck his chest, sending him skidding across the floor. Pain burned through him, but deeper than that, doubt crept in like a rising tide. Across the chamber, Rissa faced her own battle. Her copy spoke with poison. He is using you. You sense it. He pities you. Fears what you will become. Rissa's claws trembled midair. He saved me. He didn't have to. The twin smiled cruelly. Out of duty. Or guilt. Not love. You know that. I know he stayed, she whispered. Their copies pressed forward again, and this time, Terran and Rissa both stepped back to back, panting, bodies battered, minds frayed. They know what we fear, Terran murmured. Rissa nodded. We give them form. The glyphs above swirled faster, colors deepening to crimson. Terran closed his eyes. Then maybe we stop fighting them. Rissa turned, startled. What? They're us. Our fear. What if we accept it instead? The mirror Terran lunged. This time, Terran didn't raise his fists. He stepped into the strike, arms wide. The doppelganger froze, fist an inch from his face. You're part of me, Terran whispered. I'm not proud of everything, but I won't deny who I am. Across the way, Rissa did the same. She lowered her claws and looked into her twin's eyes. I am changing, she said. And I'm afraid. But I'm not alone anymore. The copies flickered. Cracks ran through the chamber walls, light bursting from within. The glyphs flared gold. Then silence. When the light faded, the chamber was whole again. The copies gone. The voice returned, now low and warm. The bond is true. Terran looked at Rissa. She was breathing hard, eyes wide, but glowing with something more than power, relief. They had passed the second trial. Together. After the second trial, the platform beneath their feet began to ascend, slowly, silently, carried by unseen forces into a shaft of pure white light. The chamber faded behind them, its jagged crystal and swirling glyphs melting away like a dream at dawn. Neither Terran nor Rissa spoke at first. There was only the soft sound of their breathing and the quiet thrum of the bond pulsing like a heartbeat between them. When Terran finally looked at her, he saw someone different, not just in form, though her evolution had clearly continued. Her body had filled out with unmistakably feminine curves beneath the sheen of lavender fur, her face now fully human-like in shape and expression, save for the feline slant to her golden eyes and the delicate twitch of her tail. "You're glowing," he said softly, awestruck. She blinked, then smiled, a small but warm thing. "So are you." Terran looked down at his hands and froze. A faint shimmer clung to his skin, like starlight caught on flesh. The mark on his forearm, once a faded scar, now glowed with the same hue as the flame in Rissa's eyes. "What is this?" he asked, running his fingers over it. Rissa stepped closer. "It's the sign of accord. The flame accepts you as protector and consort." He flinched slightly at the word. "That's fast." She tilted her head. "The flame does not measure in days or months. It recognizes truth and answers it." Terran shook his head, chuckling under his breath. "I was supposed to do a cargo run. One last haul to pay off my debt. I wasn't planning on becoming part of some interstellar legacy." Rissa stepped closer, her voice soft. "Neither was I." Their eyes met, and for a long moment, the space between them shimmered, charged, alive with something neither of them could name but both could feel. Terran reached out slowly, and Rissa didn't pull away. His fingers brushed her cheek, soft fur warm against his skin. "I'm not afraid of you," he said. "Not anymore." "Then you're ready," Rissa whispered. "The final trial awaits." The platform stopped. Before them rose the highest spire of Alaris, an obsidian tower split down the middle by a river of fire, its steps carved into a winding path that spiraled into the stars above. At the top, a beacon blazed, pulsing with the rhythm of the flame itself. At the base of the tower stood a figure. Terran narrowed his eyes. "That's..." Rissa's voice was hard. "A challenger." The figure stepped forward, cloaked in dark armor etched with crimson runes. A voice, deep, metallic, boomed across the space. "I am Kale Vorin, last of the flame-born line. The flame is not yours, outsider. You do not carry our blood." Terran took a step forward. "Maybe not. But I saved the Guardian. I passed the trials. The flame must be defended through battle," Kale said. "This is the last rite. The flame will choose its champion." He drew a blade forged from living ember, heat radiating from its edge. Rissa turned to Terran, her hands slipping into his. "If he defeats you," she said softly, "I die." Terran nodded. "Then I don't lose." As they ascended the final staircase, side by side, the flame burned brighter, ready to witness the fight that would decide the fate of a forgotten empire. The climb to the summit of the spire of Alaris was not steep, but it felt endless. Each step brought a surge of warmth through Terran's limbs, the bond between him and Rissa strengthening with every heartbeat. He could feel her presence not only beside him but within him now, emotions like whispers brushing the edges of his consciousness. Steady, steeled, and deeply afraid for him. At the summit, the platform opened like the petals of a flower into a ring of glowing stone, suspended in a sea of fire and starlight. At its center, the flame roared, a living vortex of gold and violet, flickering with ancient power. It pulsed in time with his heartbeat. Waiting. Kale Vorin stood tall, armor gleaming like obsidian in a forge. His face was revealed now, regal, striking, marred by scars that cut deep into his cheek and jaw. Eyes the same color as Rissa's, pure gold though colder. Hardened. "You are not meant to be here, human," Kale said, voice like iron. "She was meant to bond with one of our own. Not a mongrel from the outer bands." Terran raised his chin. "Funny. She didn't seem interested in anyone else showing up to save her." Kale's eyes narrowed. He stepped forward, unsheathing his blade. Its edge shimmered with inner fire, the flame responding to him. I fought in the Ash Wars, Kale said. I bled for a kingdom that forgot me. I was cast out for refusing to bond with a corrupted Lamari. And now I see, they allowed her to choose you. An outsider. You will not take what should have been mine. Rissa stepped between them for a moment. Kale, she said softly, this is not how the flame is meant to be earned. It chooses. Not us. He stared at her for a long moment, something behind his fury faltering. Then he looked away. I know, he said quietly, but I cannot accept it. He raised his sword. Terran stepped forward. Then let's get this over with. The platform shuddered as the flame roared higher, wrapping them in a circle of golden fire. The air became electric, vibrating with ancient will. Begin, said the voice of Ilaris. Kale struck first, fast, almost too fast. Terran blocked, steel meeting flame, the impact sending a shockwave through the platform. Sparks scattered across the stone as they circled one another, each testing the other's strength. Kale moved with the precision of a lifetime of training. Terran moved with the desperation of someone who refused to lose. He ducked under a wide swing and drove his elbow into Kale's ribs, but the armored warrior barely flinched. You're strong, Kale admitted. But you're not one of us. Terran gritted his teeth. I'm strong enough for her. The bond surged. Flames spiraled from the center of the ring, lashing across the floor like a living tide. It didn't touch Rissa, who stood unmoving at the platform's edge. She watched with clenched fists, her mind tethered to Terran's, pushing him, supporting him, feeding strength through their link. Kale's blade came down in a vicious arc. Terran caught it with both hands, barely holding the weight, and with a roar of effort, shoved Kale back. For a moment, both men stood still, breathless. I don't care about your bloodlines, Terran growled. I care that I saved her. That I stayed. And that, Rissa whispered, is what the flame has waited for. Light exploded between them. Both men were hurled to the platform's edge. Only one stood up. Terran stumbled to his feet, chest heaving, blood trickling from a cut above his brow. The heat of the flame pulsed behind him, casting his shadow long across the ring. Kale lay several feet away, armor scorched, weapon cracked down the center. For a moment, all was silent but for the crackle of fire and the distant hum of Ilaris itself. Rissa rushed to Terran's side, eyes wide with relief. She touched his cheek gently, her thumb brushing away the blood. You're hurt, she whispered. I've been worse, he muttered, giving her a crooked smile. Did we do it? But even as the words left his mouth, Kale stirred. He rose slowly, shakily, his pride more wounded than his body. His eyes glowed brighter than before, something wild and unstable behind them. I was born to guard the flame, he rasped. Not to lose it to some backwater smuggler. Rissa's ears flattened. Kale, don't. He wasn't listening. Kale reached beneath his chestplate and withdrew a crystal shard, pitch black, pulsing with a sickly light. Terran instinctively stepped in front of Rissa. What the hell is that? The Ember of Ruin, Rissa whispered, horror dawning in her voice. It's forbidden. A fragment of the flame's opposite, extinguished long ago. Kale drove the shard into his chest. The air cracked. A shockwave of darkness burst from his body, sending both Terran and Rissa flying. The flame shrieked, its light flickering violently. The platform beneath them shook, cracks forming in its foundation. Kale's form twisted. His eyes turned black, veins glowing with crimson light. The flame recoiled from him, yet he fed from it all the same. I will take what should have been mine, he bellowed, voice echoing like 1,000 broken bells. Terran pulled himself upright, heart pounding. He's becoming something else. Rissa stood beside him, eyes glowing white now, the bond surging between them like never before. No, she said. He's becoming nothing. Terran turned to her. Then how do we stop him? She reached for his hand. With trust. With unity. Their hands met. The flame responded. A torrent of gold and violet light erupted from its core, spiraling around them. Terran felt Rissa's thoughts flood his mind, her memories, her fear, her strength. And he gave her his in return, his regrets, his stubborn will, his love. The light formed into a shape, a weapon unlike any other. A blade born from both of them, forged of trust and defiance. Terran took it in hand, surprised by how light it felt. Kale howled and charged. Terran met him halfway. The battle was brief. One strike. A single cut of light through corrupted shadow. Kale dropped to his knees, the dark shard falling from his chest and shattering against the platform. The energy that had consumed him hissed into the air, dispersing into smoke. He looked up, eyes clearing at last. "You were chosen," he whispered. "I see that now." Terran lowered the blade. "You could have been more, Kale." Kale gave a bitter smile. "But I wasn't." He collapsed. The platform stopped trembling. The flame steadied. Silence fell again. Rissa stepped forward, her presence radiant. She looked to Terran, her voice soft, but sure. "You have passed. The flame is yours. Ours." And high above them, in the heart of Ilaris, the heavens blazed with new light. The flame pulsed with gentle brilliance now, no longer the roaring vortex it had been during the trials. Terran stood near its edge, the light licking softly at his skin like warm water. He felt it, not just around him, but inside him. Not consuming, but merging. His thoughts were clearer. His heart calmer. Across from him, Rissa was transformed fully. She stood tall, barely reaching his chest, but radiating authority that dwarfed anything he'd ever encountered. Her fur was now a silken lavender streaked with gold near her shoulders and spine. Her face was completely human in symmetry, but her feline eyes still glowed with wild intelligence. Her voice was her own now, rich and melodic, no longer just in his mind. "This was never about power," she said quietly. "The flame chose you because you gave without wanting." Terran turned to her, expression unsure. "Then what am I now? A king?" She laughed softly, a musical sound that rippled through the chamber. "The flame doesn't crown kings. It bonds souls. You are what you were before, a man who stayed." He looked down at his hand, the one that had taken the sword forged of their unity. The glow had faded now, but the warmth remained. "So what now?" he asked. "We just walk away." "No," Rissa said, stepping closer. "Now we return. Not to war or chaos, but to rebuild what was lost." She extended her hand. "With you by my side." He hesitated only for a breath, then took it. A column of golden light enveloped them both. The platform beneath their feet dissolved, replaced by a bridge of starlight that carried them away from the spire and back into the material world. The Starstrider awaited them at the edge of the sanctum, restored, polished as if touched by divine hands. And in orbit beyond, the sky swam with fleets, royal ships bearing the sigils of Azkavar, Rissa's fractured homeworld. They had come to bear witness. As the ship guided itself into formation, Rissa stood on the forward viewport beside Terran, her arms crossed. "They'll resist us. Some will deny the flame's will." Terran glanced sideways at her. "Then we remind them. Not with threats, but with proof." "You think they'll accept you?" she asked. He gave a small smile. "I don't need them to. I've got you." The Starstrider docked with the Royal Command ship, a vast vessel with sweeping arches of silver and engines that shimmered like waterfalls of light. As they stepped into the arrival hall, a silence swept through the ranks of nobles, officers, and emissaries gathered to see who would emerge. Gasps rang out. Rissa, glowing, resplendent, took the first step. Terran followed. "Presenting," came the voice of the Flamekeeper. "Guardian Rissa, and her bonded flame-bearer, Commander Terran Vox. They have passed the trial of Ilaris. The flame has spoken." Valari nobles knelt. Ambassadors bowed. And in that moment, the war for legitimacy ended. The Hall of Remembrance was unlike anything Terran had ever seen. Vast, domed, alive with echoes of voices long past. Every wall shimmered with embedded crystals that displayed living memories of Rissa's ancestors, rulers of a kingdom now fractured. The hall had once stood empty for decades, left in shadow after the flame dimmed and the last true sovereign fell to betrayal. But today, it was filled with light. Dozens of delegates lined the outer walls, cloaked in the colors of the 9 houses, their eyes guarded yet wary. Soldiers in ceremonial armor stood at precise intervals, helms under arms, watching the proceedings with a mixture of awe and disbelief. At the center of the hall stood the throne of flame, less a chair, more a construct of suspended fire and stone, hovering above a dais of floating glyphs. It pulsed like a heartbeat, and as Terran approached, he could feel it warming his skin, reaching out like it remembered him. Rissa ascended first, each step activating the glyphs beneath her feet with radiant bursts of energy. Her movement was graceful, regal. She stopped before the throne and turned to face the assembly. Her voice rang out, not shouted, but powerful in its clarity. The flame has been rekindled. The trials are complete. Let no noble, no soldier, no stranger deny what was written in our oldest laws. Her gaze swept over them. This man, she continued, gesturing to Terran, did not come for power. He did not seek title or wealth. He came only because he refused to walk away. And because of that, the flame chose him. I chose him. Terran swallowed hard, feeling the weight of hundreds of stairs pressing against his back. But as Rissa extended her hand toward him, every fear faded. He stepped forward and took it. The flames surged. A beam of pure light erupted from the dais and encircled them both, lifting them slightly from the platform. Gasps echoed through the hall as the throne reacted, its once dim embers flaring to life, reshaping slightly, its form adjusting to accommodate two. Symbols etched themselves into the air above their heads, ancient Azkavari runes signifying unity, rebirth, bond. Terran didn't understand their language, but he understood what they meant. A high priestess stepped forward, her voice quivering with reverence. By decree of the flame and the old rites of Azkavar, we crown Rissa Flamebearer of the realm, and recognize Terran Vox as her consort, guardian, and bonded protector. As the words echoed through the hall, the throne lowered slightly, welcoming them. Rissa turned to him as the chamber erupted in light, nobles rising to cheer, banners unfurling with the symbol of the rekindled flame. You still with me? She asked softly, her voice lost beneath the applause. Terran smiled. For however long you'll have me. She leaned closer, her forehead brushing his. Then let's lead them, together. The grand celebration faded into the echoes of the palace corridors, and with it, the pressure of expectation. Guards withdrew to their stations. Courtiers dispersed with satisfied whispers and carefully measured bows. The throne room emptied at last, leaving only moonlight and silence. Terran followed Rissa through the quiet, winding halls of the upper citadel, their steps light against the polished stone. No one spoke. Not because there was nothing to say, but because the weight of everything they'd been through hung gently in the air between them. The war, the trials, the throne, it was done. They entered a chamber unlike any other in the palace. The sky atrium. A vast glass dome stretched overhead, revealing a canopy of stars so vivid they felt close enough to touch. Velvet curtains framed arched windows overlooking the illuminated spires of Azkavar, where 1,000 lanterns danced in the night wind. It was a sacred place reserved for the sovereign alone, a sanctuary to think, to dream, to simply be. This used to be my mother's retreat, Rissa said, walking to the edge of the balcony, her fur glistening silver in the starlight. She'd sit here for hours, wondering how to hold together a kingdom already falling apart. Terran stood beside her, gazing up at the sky. You're doing more than holding it together. You're lighting it up again. She glanced sideways at him. I didn't do it alone. He turned to her. I never wanted this. But I'm not walking away from it. Not now. Rissa stepped closer. Her hand found his, fingers threading easily between his. You saved me when you didn't have to. Then stayed when you should have run. The flame may have chosen us, but I would have chosen you anyway. Terran's breath caught. Her eyes, brighter than any star outside the glass, were filled with something unspoken, deep, real. He touched her cheek, thumb brushing the edge of her jaw. "I've seen so much of the galaxy," he said, "but nothing ever felt like mine. Until now." Rissa leaned into him. "We're bonded through the flame. That doesn't mean we're bound by duty alone." His hand settled gently on her waist. "Then tell me what this is," he said quietly. "Right now. Not as your protector. Not as consort. Just as me." Rissa stepped forward, closing the space between them. She rose on her toes, her forehead touching his, the warmth of her breath on his lips. "This," she whispered, "is choice." Their kiss was slow, unrushed, full of everything they hadn't said. There was no throne here. No war. No trial. Just two souls who had found one another through fire and fate. And when they pulled away, either needed to speak. They stood together beneath the stars, a union not just of power or tradition, but of trust, healing, and something dangerously close to love. Dawn broke across the highlands of Azkavar, light spilling through the citadel windows in brilliant amber rays. The city below stirred to life, markets opened, children's laughter returned to the streets, and banners fluttered with the new emblem of unity, two hands cradling a single, eternal flame. Inside the palace, Terran woke to the sound of distant bells. Rissa was already up, standing by the open balcony doors, her silhouette bathed in sunlight. The wind played gently with her hair, now long and silver at the ends, glinting with hints of violet. Her tail swayed slowly behind her, relaxed, content. He pushed himself up, blankets falling away. "You don't sleep much for someone who just won a civil war." She turned, smiling softly. "The flame doesn't rest. It hums through everything now. Even sleep feels alive." He stood, crossing the room to wrap his arms around her from behind. She leaned into him without hesitation, letting his warmth settle over her shoulders. "I could get used to this," he murmured against her neck. "You already have," she teased. They stood like that for a while, watching the city come alive, before a knock echoed at the chamber door. "Enter," Rissa called. Thalen, her steward and advisor, stepped in, offering a formal bow. "Forgive the intrusion, High Flame Bearer. But the council awaits in the Hall of Accord." Rissa sighed. "What is it this time?" "The border clans of Sire are requesting immediate protection," he said. "The Dominion may have lost their grip, but raiders still harass the outposts. They're asking for action." Terran stepped forward, voice firm. "Tell them it's coming. But not just fire and steel. They'll get roads. Clean water. Safe trade lanes." Thalen raised an eyebrow. "You're speaking as more than a consort." Terran met his gaze. "I'm speaking as someone who's done running." Rissa placed a hand on Terran's chest. "Prepare the council. We'll be there shortly." Thalen bowed and left. Terran turned to her. "You think they'll listen?" "Some will," she said. "Others will test us. But the flame chose us not just to rule, but to change things." He smiled. "Then let's change everything." They dressed in formal robes, his woven with new sigils that symbolized rebirth and kinship, hers a flowing mix of midnight blue and ember red. Side by side, they entered the Hall of Accord, where nobles old and new waited with guarded interest. Rissa spoke first, voice clear and commanding. "The flame has returned. Azkavar rises. And we will not be ruled by fear." Terran stepped forward. "This isn't about holding on to a broken past. We've earned a future. And we'll fight to keep it, together." Some counselors nodded. Others didn't. But none dared to speak against them, not after what the flame had made clear. And in the shadows of the chamber, an envoy stood silently, a messenger from a distant world, face obscured beneath a hood. Watching. Listening. Waiting. Because peace, as always, never lasted long. The Hall of Accord emptied slowly after the council adjourned, leaving behind only murmurs, clinking goblets, and fading footsteps. Terran watched them go from the upper balcony, his arms folded across his chest, expression thoughtful. Rissa joined him, her presence silent but warm. They don't trust me, he said quietly. Not all of them. They don't trust change, she replied. You just are the change. He looked at her, half smiling. That a royal compliment? It's the highest kind. They shared a quiet moment, until a voice, low, refined, and unfamiliar, cut through the air behind them. Forgive the interruption, Flame-bearer. But there is one among your guests who did not come to kneel. Both turned. Phelan stood near the entrance, flanked by 2 guards and a robed figure whose face remained hidden beneath a deep, obsidian hood. Rissa stepped forward. You did not speak during council. The figure bowed slightly, then removed the hood. Taryn's breath caught. The woman beneath was human. Scar over one eye. Hair shaved close on one side, long on the other. She wore no insignia of loyalty, only a smooth black band over her throat that flickered with faint blue lines. Hello, Vox, she said. Taryn blinked. Raven? Rissa looked between them, tension rising. You know her? We ran jobs together, Taryn muttered. Years ago. She vanished after a botched deal in Thera Prime. Thought she was dead. I was reborn, Raven said, stepping closer. With purpose. Rissa's tone sharpened. State your purpose. Raven didn't flinch. I bring warning. The flame's reawakening has drawn attention. Not from Dominion remnants, but from the Unity Core. Rissa's brows furrowed. That's myth. A ghost fleet. No, Raven said. They're real. And they're coming. Taryn took a step forward. Why now? Because you bonded the flame. Raven's voice dropped. And in doing so, you reignited the signal. Rissa's eyes narrowed. What signal? Raven looked straight at her. The call that once united a dozen systems under the original flame-bearer. The core believes it belongs to them. Taryn stiffened. So what? They want to steal it. They want to reclaim it. And they don't care what burns in the process. Rissa exchanged a glance with Taryn. No words passed between them, but the meaning was clear. They had fought for a kingdom. Now, they would fight for a galaxy. The Royal War Chamber was never meant for diplomacy. Its walls were armored, its windows narrow, and its long obsidian table more accustomed to tactical overlays than discussion. Still, Rissa stood at its head with the poise of a sovereign, her presence commanding even without the flame's soft glow pulsing through her chest. Beside her, Taryn leaned forward, scanning the data holograms hovering over the table's surface, readouts of starship signatures, signal intercepts, and strange distortions at the edge of the sector. Across from them, Raven sat, arms folded, eyes sharp and unreadable. 2 royal guards stood just behind her, unmoving. We picked up these patterns 4 days ago, she said, gesturing to the erratic blips on the display. Drive signatures not from the Dominion, and too clean to be raiders. Rissa studied the data. How are they avoiding border sensors? They're using slip fractures, Raven replied. Artificial ones, torn open, not naturally occurring. My guess? Core tech. Way ahead of anything Azkavar or Earth ever fielded. Taryn looked to Rissa. She's telling the truth. I've seen fractures like that, once. A decade ago, out past the Karis Belt. We thought it was a collapsed wormhole, but it stayed open for hours. Like it was waiting for something. Raven nodded. It was. Rissa's voice dropped. You're certain it's the Unity Core? They were real once, Raven said. The Great Experiment. Uniting species through pure mind link. But they went too far, tried to overwrite individuality in the name of peace. When their leaders failed to control the collective, it fractured. Now they want to unify again, but not through consent. Through assimilation. Taryn's jaw clenched. And the flame calls to them. Because it resists them, Raven said. It's a beacon they can't ignore. Before Rissa could respond, the room trembled. The wall lights flickered. Power surge, a guard said. A second later, a blast ripped through the far wall. The explosion shredded the armor plating, sending stone and metal flying. Terran grabbed Rissa and pulled her to the floor as blaster fire rained in. One of the guards went down instantly, armor melted by a white-hot lance of energy. The other dragged Raven behind cover. Figures moved in through the smoke, sleek, silent, faceless. Not Dominion. Not Raiders. These were something else. They didn't speak. They didn't shout commands. They simply advanced. Terran rolled to his feet, grabbing a fallen guard's sidearm. "We're under attack!" Rissa called the flame to her hands instinctively. Fire licked up her arms as she unleashed a wave of light that stopped 3 intruders mid-step, incinerating them in an instant. But more came. Dozens. Raven ducked behind the table, dragging a pistol from her hip. "Told you they were coming." Terran fired 2 shots, covering Rissa's flank. "We should have listened faster." From the far end of the hall, armored soldiers poured in, Rissa's personal guard, led by Thora herself. "Protect the flame!" she bellowed, deflecting a blast with her shield and charging into the fray. The battle was chaos. Blades of energy clashed with fire, screams mixed with hissing weapons, and the palace trembled with every detonation. Rissa fought like the flame incarnate, her eyes glowing, movements fluid and furious. Terran stayed close to her, his every move a shield, a strike, a breath of defiance. And somewhere behind the enemy line, a single figure stood watching, cloaked in silver, face hidden behind a mirrored mask. As the last intruder fell, Rissa staggered to her knees. Terran caught her. "We need to know who sent them," she said between breaths. The cloaked figure turned and vanished into smoke, leaving only one message burned into the broken wall in flickering red script. "We come not to conquer. We come to correct." Smoke drifted lazily through the ruined war chamber, curling in golden shafts of light that cut through shattered windows. The guards worked swiftly to clear the dead, while medical teams moved among the injured. A silence had settled, not peace, but that electric quiet after a storm, where everything felt fragile. Terran leaned against the scorched column, shirt torn and blood on his sleeve. Across from him, Rissa stood with Thora, her hand resting on the flame itself, its pulse slower now, steadier, as if recovering from the fight. Raven paced nearby, her face unreadable. "That wasn't an invasion," Terran said. "That was a message." Rissa nodded. "They wanted to test us. To show us they could walk through our walls. And to see how we'd react." "They'll come again," Thora said. "Harder." "No," Rissa replied. "They won't need to. They think they've already broken our illusion of safety." Terran stepped beside her. "Then let's show them they were wrong." She turned to him, eyes still glowing faintly. "Not with armies. Not again." He nodded slowly. "Then how?" Her gaze shifted to the flame. "We finish what was started at Alaris. We restore the bond, not just between us, but between our peoples. The flame was meant to unite, not divide. We'll open the old archives, share its knowledge. Its power. No more hoarding it behind glass and tradition." "And the core?" Raven asked. Rissa's voice turned cold. "If they return, we'll meet them with more than fire. We'll meet them with unity." The words rang through the broken chamber. Later that evening, in the sky atrium beneath the stars, Rissa and Terran stood alone. "It's not over," she whispered. "No," he said. "But it's the start of something new." She took his hand. "You were a smuggler." "Still am," he teased. "I just smuggled my way into a throne." She laughed, pulling him closer. "And I was just a guardian. Alone in the dark. Not anymore." Their kiss this time wasn't desperate. It was quiet. Deep. Real. Outside, Azkavar slowly rebuilt. And though new threats waited in the void, the flame had chosen its bearers. 2 souls bound not by fate or war, but by trust, by choice, and by a love forged in fire. And as the 3 moons rose over the spires, the flame burned brighter than ever before.